Look, I don't know who needs to hear this, but when survivors have to beg for the most powerful people in the country to release the truth about a man who abused them, something is sick at the core of this country. Trump's been yelling for years about transparency and exposing corruption in the deep state until those Epstein's files got a little too close to home. And this is what makes this moment different. You can argue with politicians, you can argue with pundits, but you can't argue with survivors. You can't opt out of trauma. You can't rename pain. And every time one of these women speak, you can hear in their voice that this ain't got nothing to do with politics. This is survival. And now we're watching Trump do the fastest U-turn in modern politics. Not because he suddenly cares, but because he finally ran into a group he can't bully, can't distract. He can't lie his way around. So let's break it down clip by clip, because this ain't just a vote. This is a test about who's real and who's running scared.
The women like Liz Stein have been relentless in the face of great opposition in many cases. They've met with lawmakers. They showed up on Capitol Hill. They've been doing these interviews. They've been taping this new public service announcement. You saw how emotional it was for them. Is this a case where, when it comes to the Epstein survivors, President Trump has finally run up against a group he can't outmessage?
Well, look, Chris, she's a very powerful advocate, and it's remarkable that they've come together in this public campaign. But what's notable, right, is that what Donald Trump caused him to make his U-turn was the fact that it was too many people inside his own Republican Party that for years had believed that there was a sort of series of smoking guns inside these documents, and that they should be released because they would expose some big gigantic conspiracy theory, a rot within the celebrity and Democratic establishment. If it weren't for that years-long political view among part of the MAGA right, we wouldn't be in this situation where Trump is facing a very embarrassing vote.
Let me tell you something. Political movements fall apart when they collide with reality. And that's exactly what's happening here. Survivors walked into the conversation with nothing but the truth, their truth. No PR, no billionaire backers, no spin doctors, just the scars they carry every single day. And these politicians, they don't know what to do with that. And here's the crazy part. Trump ain't even in trouble because of Democrats. He's in trouble because the same people that hyped up his conspiracy for years is the same people who say these files would destroy the deep state and are now the ones demanding it and demanding the vote. He created this monster. He fed the monster all through the campaign. And now that monster is standing right in front of him and saying, let's see the truth, man. Survivors ain't playing. They're not chasing clout. They're not running campaigns. They're trying to make sure no little girl goes through what they had to go through. That's why Trump can't opt out of this, because you can't opt out of the goddamn truth.
Peter, even in this reversal, the president didn't say he wants justice for the victims. He said basically DOJ should do what it wants because, in his words, quote, I don't care. All I do care about is that Republicans get back on point.
He said, I don't care. Just get Republicans back on point. What? You're the leader of the free world, and survivors are begging you to acknowledge their trauma. And you talking like this is some campaign schedule and conflict. This is why so many people don't trust the politicians. They cry at school shooting memorials, but ignore clear victims when it threatens their own political image. And you know what's crazy? A lot of survivors supported him. A lot of them voted for him. A lot of them even defended him in the public. And they did it thinking that he was going to do something for them. And this is how he responds? Like they're an inconvenience? Real leaders know when something is bigger than a party, but Trump is trapped in this bubble where everything gets filtered through. How is this going to help me or serve me? Survivors deserve better. This country deserves better.
But for Trump, I think it's been a frustration because it is, in his way, in his view, a distraction from messaging he would rather focus on. Remember, they have spent 2 months trying to, more than that, really, trying to avoid the vote that's going to happen tomorrow. The Speaker of the House kept the House out of session for 6, 7 weeks. I don't think we've seen that in modern times, just to avoid exactly what's about to happen. And his pivot last night was, as Susan said, a sign of surrender to the reality of the situation in Washington, where people are going to be voting against him, even from his own party, apparently in droves. It's also important to find the larger meaning in his connection to his MAGA base here, right? It's fascinating to hear him not only pivot on the Epstein files, but last night say he stands by Tucker Carlson in this intra-MAGA fight.
A lot of people still think Trump runs MAGA. MAGA is running him. He built this whole movement on conspiracy crumbs, and now folks want the whole loaf. He told them there was a deep state. He told them there are elites out here being pedophiles and hiding secrets. He told them transparency was going to be the key to bringing America back. And now that transparency might expose something about him. He suddenly doesn't want it anymore. This ain't leadership. This is a hostage situation. When you got to do a U-turn to stop your own supporters from turning on you, that means you ain't leading the movement no more. You just surviving. Survivors pushed him. His base pushed him. Congress pushed him. He didn't even pivot because he wanted transparency. He pivoted because he had no choice.
The conventional wisdom was that the House vote might not really matter that much, because even if it passed, the Senate wasn't likely to even take a vote. Has that calculation changed now?
Yeah, I think it has. Obviously, when you have the president of the United States say, go ahead, it gives freedom, license to all the Republicans out there who would just as soon take that vote anyway. The only reason they might not have taken it was out of fear of, retaliation from the president. He's now saying, I'm not going to retaliate in effect. So you imagine Republican senators would go along with House Republicans as well in voting for this. And you imagine, but it's not for sure, that the president would sign it. Remember, he would have to sign this kind of a measure, and they would have to then override a veto if he doesn't, with a 2/3 vote in both houses. It now looks like it's possible you can get that 2/3 vote in both houses.
When both chambers of Congress start lining up for transparency, something is cooking. A lot of politicians are terrified of this moment, not because they're guilty, but because transparency like this sets a precedence for everything. Both Democrats and Republicans, they got skeletons. And Epstein had access to all kinds of skeletons: financial, social, political. He knew the donor class. He knew Wall Street. He knew the Hollywood crowd. He knew the DC elites. If these files drop, woohoo, people who thought they were untouchable might get touched. Trump's pivot made it socially acceptable for Republicans to vote yes, not because they want justice, because they don't want to be seen as protectors of predators. The wind has shifted. And when the wind shifts in DC, everybody pretends that they were going in that direction the whole time.
Are you suggesting there's something in the Epstein files that President Trump does not want Americans to see?
Well, I think that's the part that has so many people confused, is that the women themselves that I have talked to have over and over again said that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Quite a few of them even told me they voted for him. I have no idea what's in the files. I can't even guess, but that is the questions everyone is asking, is why fight this so hard?
This is where the whole narrative cracks open. Even people who voted for him, even people who defended him, even people who said he did nothing wrong are now asking, why fight so hard? And that's the real problem. If you claim innocence, lean into transparency. If you claim to be honest, embrace the truth. If you claim to protect children, release the documents. A man with nothing to hide, he wants it all out there on the table. A man with something to protect becomes very unpredictable. And this ain't about guilt. This is about the switch up, the 180, the sudden panic, the fear in the messaging. That's what everybody sees.
Well, let's point out that we don't need a law passed by Congress for Donald Trump to go ahead and release more information from the Justice Department. He has not been hesitant to leak out government information when it has suited him. So remember that this vote is all because Trump has refused to release additional information from the Justice Department files. He doesn't need the vote to do so. So that still leaves us wondering what exactly is in there. We already know, courtesy of Republicans in Congress last week who released 20,000 additional documents they obtained from the Epstein estate, that Donald Trump's name is mentioned repeatedly throughout those files.
This is the part they don't want you to think about. Trump doesn't need Congress. Trump doesn't need a law. Trump doesn't need a vote. The Justice Department is under his administration. If he wanted the files released, they'd been out 2 weeks ago. So he could have done it anytime, and he didn't. What does that really say? Epstein talked about Trump constantly. People forget Epstein had a weird obsession with power, especially people he felt competed with him socially. Trump's name showing up a lot doesn't mean guilt, but it does mean proximity. And proximity, it makes people kind of nervous, because at the end of the day, if you're innocent, release it. If you're not, well, you might want to be a little scared. But if the truth will set you free, open the damn door, my man. This ain't just politics. It's a line in the sand. The survivors want the truth. Politicians want control. Trump wants the narrative, and the American people want answers. Now, this vote is going to reveal exactly who stands with the survivors and who stands with the petties. And when the dust settles, we're going to see who believes in transparency and who was only pretending. Either way, we're going to be there. And we're going to break it down for you. Because we don't run from the truth. We run right to that. This is Hood Politics. You make sure you hit that like button, drop your thoughts in them comments, and subscribe for more real talk. Not that polished nonsense they push on cable. It's that real deal Holyfield. It's your boy. Be out of here. Peace.